It's Platt, and today we try a beer from a Denmark brewing giant. That's next to Platt's Beer of the Week. So the particular beer we have today is Carlsberg Danish pilsner. This beer comes to us from Carlsberg. Carlsberg, as you may or may not know, is a massive multinational brewing company based in Copenhagen, Denmark. They don't necessarily have a huge presence here in the U.S. They're more Europe and Asia, but they're among the big boys, among your Heineken, AB InBevs, Molson Coors, Sapporos, group of Modelos. Massive, massive company. A little background on Carlsberg. Carlsberg was founded in 1847 by a gentleman named J.C. Jacobsen. He was an avid art collector. Still to this day, I believe Carlsberg sponsors the museum that holds all his artwork. He's kind of just an overall Renaissance guy, brewer. He's interested in science, just like I said, a Renaissance man. In 1868, about 20 years into brewing, Carlsberg began to export their beer for the first time. The first export went to Edinburgh, Scotland. In 1882, his son Carl started a brewery that was called New Carlsberg Brewing, and apparently either because of licensing issues or trademark or whatever, forcing his father to name the original brewery Old Carlsberg Brewing. Again, I don't know if there was a riff in the family or just kind of a paperwork thing. Eventually, though, in 1906, the two companies combined, and Carl ran them until his death in 1914. Now, J.C. Jacobsen did some kind of interesting groundbreaking at the time. In 1875, he started Carlsberg Laboratory with the specific interest into advancing brewing science. The laboratory was obviously to help his brewery, Carlsberg, but just overall advance the brewing science. And one of the things they did, interestingly enough, was to isolate yeast strains and end up breeding their own yeast strain that they use for lagers. It was called Saccharomyces Carlsbergensis. Hopefully I said that right. And they were the first brewery to have their own specific yeast strain. Now that's done today. The best example is Anheuser-Busch with Budweiser. They literally will ship the strain from the home office in St. Louis, and they'll fly it, from what I gather, every day to the different regional breweries just so they maintain the integrity of that yeast. But Carlsberg was doing that kind of work 150 years ago. Quite impressive. Move ahead to 1966, and the brewery for the first time licensed their beer to be produced outside of Denmark. Oddly enough, they picked the island nation of Cyprus. I guess there was just some thirsty tourists. 4 years later, the company merged with Torberg, which is another giant Danish brewery, and at that point, Carlsberg really kind of hit a critical mass. Years later, in 1992, the combined company ended up merging with Tetley, which was a giant English brewer. By the end of 1997, though, Carlsberg had bought all the stock and became the sole owner of Tetley. Years later, 2008, they took part of a kind of interesting deal. Them and Heineken together purchased Scottish and Newcastle. From what I gather, the regulators wouldn't let just Heineken buy the whole thing or just Carlsberg. So they kind of split the company up, and one took different pieces. Maybe Heineken over here in this country produced Newcastle, maybe Carlsberg over here distributed Newcastle, but they kind of split it up and kind of gave them a way to work around the monopoly regulations in a lot of these countries. But it's kind of an interesting deal. Real quick, I want to talk about one of their beers. I don't know if it's available in the U.S. or not anymore. I think it's still around, but I'm not sure here in the U.S. It's elephant beer. Apparently, elephants were real important or a symbol to the family. I think they used it for a logo as a little bit. From what I gather, Carl Jacobsen had commissioned artists and stoneworkers to create elephants on the outside of the building. Apparently there was 4 elephants, one for each of Carl's kids. So anyway, the elephant was important to the family, and in 1955 they developed a beer based on that. It was an export lager, 7.2% ABV. Technically it was considered a strong lager. And this was the first Carlsberg I ever had. I remember about 30 years ago, the first time I'd ever gone to a real nice beer bar that had a wide selection of beer, and that was the Carlsberg Elephant was part of their beer club. So that was the first Carlsberg I ever had. As far as Carlsberg brand itself, there's pretty much just here in the U.S. the pilsner that we have today, and then the non-alcoholic. They don't have a line. They have What they have is a massive portfolio of international brands they've accumulated over the years. Kronenbourg in France, Beerlau in Laos, Baltica in Russia, Mythos in Greece. They also produce Somersby ciders, and they actually have the license for Coca-Cola in Denmark. So they're not just a beer company, they're a beverage company. Beer, cider, soft drinks, waters, they kind of cover the whole spectrum. Well, before we try this particular beer though, let's check out the stats. So today, real quick, when I was getting ready to do this video, it kind of just dawned on me, hey, the holidays are here. Oh my gosh, time flies. First and foremost, I just want to say happy holidays. Merry Christmas, happy Kwanzaa, happy Hanukkah, wherever you celebrate, happy that. Go out and have a good time with friends and family. Real quick, this is also, because it's gift giving season, I want to give a couple suggestions. If you're looking for, home brewing kits, or you have a beer drinker in your life and then once again the home brewing, check out, I've got a whole line of video on home brewing kits. I've reviewed most of the major home brewing kits out there. I also did a video top 5 home brewing kits for beginners. So if you want any information on that, check out that line of videos. Also too, if you're looking for just silly alcohol related stocking stuffers, check my Amazon link down below. I've got a little Amazon store that's just random goofy stuff I've seen in Amazon. I kind of suggest there, so check that out if you're looking for like I said, some stocking stuffers. Well, enough about that. Let's get down to drink some beer. Boy, nice clear beer, plenty of effervescence. Got a little aggressive with the pour, so we got a thick white head. Kind of typical Euro funk on the nose. A little more than I would get in a standard pilsner. Not a lot of hops, which, again, a pilsner generally has a nice little hop bite. We'll see if it comes out in the flavor. I get a little on the end, but not much. This is, I know they call it a Danish Pilsner, so maybe technically Danish Pilsners are a little different than Czech or German Pilsners. To me, this tastes more like just kind of a generic pale lager. I don't get the hop bite and crispness out of this beer. It's kind of standard for a Pilsner. Also, to me, it has a little more body to it. I don't know if that's through the use of adjuncts, because sometimes that adds a little body. Just shade more viscosity. This is still, again, in the pale lager range. We're not talking about, bigger beers, but compared to, again, the traditional, really light, crisp Czech Pilsner, this has a little more body, a little less hop bite. Even though it's in a can, it still has that kind of Euro lager, green bottle lager kind of funk to it a little bit. I mean, still very drinkable beer. If I was in a pub over there and we're watching, a football match or rugby or something like that, somebody, hey, you want a Carlsberg? Sure. I'm not going to say no, but this does not set itself really apart. Especially, again, the name Pilsner, I think, kind of throws me off a little bit. I don't get that. I get more of just kind of a generic pale lager. That being said, that's about it. There's not a lot to this beer. It's pretty simple, but again, they really cater more to the European and Asian crowd, so this probably fits more with what they're doing over there. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or beers that you'd like me to try, please leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Till next time, bottoms up.